Greetings, you've landed at the VUC, IP Communications and VoIP community. We would like to thank Simwood.com for their support. Simwood can turn you as a developer into a telco. Our hosted PBX is from OnSIP.com. You can go to getonsip.com for a URL people can click to call you. We've been privileged over the last 5 years to be using the best conference bridge on the planet. Yes, I'm talking about ZipDX.com, full color, full featured, full HD conference bridge. Our website, vuc.me on the webs, hosted by Bluehost.com. And our worldwide local rate dial-ins are from Voxbone.com. And I resized the graphic automatically to say that this is VUC 614 for October 7th, 2016. Pixelmania, among other things. Soon we're going to have, later on, a cage match between Mr. Tim Panton and Mr. James Bodie, if Mr. Bodie shows up. Otherwise, it'll be an epic rap battle, but from one side only. Other than that, we have a bunch of news to talk about, and let's start with the conversation that you fellows were having. Let me see if I can get my camera on. I'm having some internet problems, so my camera would be possibly here. There it is. We were having a discussion about, Michael, why don't you lay that out, because you started that with the people who are helping other people with their hardware in your area.
It rolls back a week or more to when security researcher Brian Krebs had his website taken out by what's being heralded as the biggest DDoS attack in the history of the world, which was in large measure based on IoT devices. It seems that the preponderance of the things that were aggregating their bandwidth were in fact like surveillance cameras and network video recorders and this sort of stuff. And the number I heard was 1.6 terabits per second of data was being thrown at Krebs' website, and to the point where the host that had been really a stalwart in helping him in defend against prior attacks had to give up, and he had to take the site down and come to other arrangements.
It wasn't the host. It wasn't the host, Michael. Apparently, Akamai, who I hate for reasons we won't go into now, actually volunteered to help him out. So
right, they did. They were not being paid, but it sort of.
I mean, that whole story turned out to be quite complicated in that he had a gentleman's agreement, or a freebie from a company which Akamai then bought, and they inherited the freebie in effect. So I mean, you could read it as all power to them for having supported him for as long as they did, but that given that it was a freebie.
The barbarians were at the gates, and they defended the gates a good long while at tremendous cost before they finally said, "Oh, by the way, we're not doing this anymore."
But considering what Akamai charges, I haven't seen their results sheets, so maybe they're not making any money. But they require ridiculous amounts of money to work with them, and they work with all the big companies. So the fact that they couldn't take any more is questionable to me, but hey, whatever. It was free.
I mean, I don't know whether they couldn't take any more, or they couldn't find a manager who would justify taking as much. I think that would be. So they
stop everything. Mr. Bodie and his lovely wife are with us, because I can see he's in his car.
They're in the Land Rover or whatever.
And she's telling him, "James, would you please, can we forego this until you get home?" Hello, Sophie. Find out when James will be home so we can figure out what.
He's got headphones on, so we can't talk to Sophie.
All right, James. Say hello to Sophie.
Randy says hello, Sophie. Sophie says hello, Randy.
Okay, great.
Oh, and we're live as well.
Yes, so we're live.
What are we talking about?
Mostly talking about you and the cage match that is going to take place when you get home. So when will that be?
That is going to be about 20 minutes, I'm afraid.
Okay, that's perfect.
So I thought I'd pop up and just warn you.
Great.
Sophie's driving, and I wouldn't say cage match.
Well, it's going to be a cage match, and now you need to be quiet so we can get back to our topic. And if you have comments, of course, you can interject. Okay. And he lost.
All right.
And that's another thing. All right, go back to Michael.
So, in any event, this spurred some conversation. This whole DDoS thing amongst a few people around me, and one of the things that I came away from it thinking was, it would be good if people had greater intellectual ownership of their networks. In the enterprise space, you see this, but in the residential space, you don't. And that then sort of devolved, as Andy and I were talking about. It would be, there are at least a few people in our neighborhood.
Tim said something that was just not quite right, and you know,
if he's not going to be able to participate, we should perhaps mute him.
Well, he said, Tim, let's find out if Tim wanted to say something.
I'm not at all sure what I'm not quite right about, actually.
But I did hear your voice, but go ahead, Michael.
Anyway, there are some folks in our neighborhood who provide, pay-for-play IT services to people who are non-technical, and I think that there's what I've found is, in the U.S., we don't pay particularly enough attention to what are considered trades, and Andy noted that plumbers make a heck of a lot of money, which is true, but that I think there could be sort of this new trade of helping people with Geek Squad kinds of things, although the Geek Squad was sort of just a way for a retailer to reach out into that space and get paid for a service that they were in some measure having to provide anyway. This idea of taking ownership of the network and knowing that, if you installed cameras, are the admin passwords changed? Are they suitably locked down? Are best practices being followed even if they've been established?
By the way, I didn't chime in with this then because I was away from the microphone, but this is completely similar to the experience I mentioned in various places about going into a store that had been there for a month and seeing on their cash register, where you see welcome to such and such, welcome to this business, or the date, or hello. It was, message line 1, message line 2. They'd been open for all this time, and I thought to myself, because I had worked with cash register vendor, and I know for a fact that these people would never deliver a cash register and not have something programmed. It doesn't matter what, welcome to the store, blah, 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 anything. You would never have left that. And nowadays, apparently they did. I don't know whether they just took delivery directly from China or what happened, but somehow no one programmed it. And again, okay, that's business. It's a little bit different, but it's true that, and we got Johnny Diggs joining us. It's true that there is a need for some intermediate level where people who just kind of know how to do the hardware, like almost every husband just knows just about enough, or wife for that matter. There's always one person in the couple who knows pretty much enough to reboot the router, to get the internet back, to do this and do that. So my question to you, Tim, was going to be, coders aren't the only thing we need in this world. I think there's a great need of people who know enough about some of the devices we're surrounded by, and of course the OSs too. And I wanted to get your take on that because you are a coder and I'm not. Well, I am, but I'm horrible. So
I think that's right, but I think that the change will only happen when there are real penalties for the manufacturer. I mean, what you're looking at is basically, in all of these cases, bad and sloppy design. It's not like the DVR manufacturers didn't know that this was a problem and didn't know that nobody will ever change the passwords. They knew it, and in fact, in many cases, they're quite difficult to update. And in some of the instances of the things that were involved in the DDoS, the devices automatically reset the passwords. So if you update the OS, for example, then they go back to the 123 password. So it's not I think it's unfair to blame the owners, apart from the fact that they didn't buy the most expensive goods on the market. And there's no guarantee there that'll be any better. there is however, some interesting signs of hope. One of which is that TalkTalk, our local ISP here, has just been fined £400,000 for losing user data, and allegedly the sale of Yahoo to Verizon has been negotiated down by $1 billion because they got hacked. So there is now real financial penalties starting to kick in for being insecure as an organization. Now, that hasn't filtered down to IoT yet, but you can imagine a situation where your ISP will say, we'll restrict your upload if you have one of these fridges. You know, and that because it's a hazard to our network. So if we catch you with an XYZ fridge that's insecure, we'll cut your bandwidth, and you know, we'll limit it to the point where you can't damage the network. And so that I could see that kind of thing happening, and then you get a pressure for the manufacturer to say, well, like we have a kite mark which says we meet these tick mark criteria, and then it comes back to the coders, and they actually get given the time to do it. I mean, I was at a meetup last night with a bunch of security guys, and basically they were all saying, well, it's really hard to get the time to do these things properly. And the only way that happens is if it's on the management radar. So you have to fix it at the management level first, within the organization, so that are selling these things. There, that's my rant over. Hey, Mr. Diggs.
Well, wait a minute. I want to get to Diggs because he may be time pressured. But before, I just want to clarify, Tim, that wasn't my question. My question had to do with people who would know enough to fix that problem. But we'll get back to that later.
But, so my argument is that it's not fixable locally.
Okay. All right. Well, you could change the password and so on. Anyway, Diggs, let's see if we can hear you. So far, no. Still no. Keep working on that. Keep working. Or is it me? No, I think nobody can hear him. Keep selecting that microphone. He's got a beard.
Yeah, he's got a beard, but no.
Is anybody hearing him?
No.
I'm not.
No.
Okay.
No.
So to clarify
Tim, the point was that wouldn't it be nice to have a network of people? Diggs, you're going to be working on this. Well, as soon as we hear a sound from you, it's on you. The point was really that it would be nice to have people who knew enough about the hardware to at least go change the password and check it. And by the way, I was staying with, forget the literally, it comes later. I was staying in a place all of the month of August where they literally have password as their password for Wi-Fi. And usually when I go there, I would change it. But I can't because they have like 10 people in the same area who are depending on it. And I mean, they're too lazy to put an actual password and tell the people. So there's that.
Which brings up the point that Michael made earlier, and that is that who's actually responsible for all this? If you're putting stuff on your local network, do you carry some sort of level of responsibility, even if you don't know anything technically? Or is it the manufacturers that really should carry the responsibility? And the two things are diametrically opposite, and you really want them to meet in the middle, so that there is some form of responsibility that people need to take themselves, but that the majority of it falls on the manufacturers.
You end up with a position that's like driving. You have an offence of driving without due care and attention. But on the other hand, it's illegal to manufacture a car that's fundamentally unsafe.
Okay, but on the other hand, it's illegal to drive a car without, in this country anyway, without a Ministry of Transport approved test certificate.
Right, exactly.
So there is a level of responsibility on both parts.
So you need a driving license and a test certificate. So like both you and the car have to be
of a suitable quality, yes, or what is deemed to be of a suitable quality.
Right. So I mean, I think we'll end up in that position that people will have to take some responsibility, but fundamentally the devices, I mean, coming back to Randy's point, the devices that we're talking about for this DDoS were, however good you were, they were unsecurable without basically wrapping the whole thing in a VPN.
Wait a minute, let's get a little technical detail, if you do know it, which is, okay, I was talking about the fact that everyone knows, and you can easily Google the passwords of routers, for example. But you're talking security cameras. I'm not sure, I'm not that familiar, but I know that when we've used that tool that Near and company uses to go out the web and look at insecure stuff, the security cameras are one of the biggest offenders of this. Is there some reason why you can't go into the local admin? And I mean, couldn't you have the guy who knows this stuff in your area, when you've got this stuff, when you bought this stuff, can't someone change the things that aren't securable? Or is there some way that they were breaking in, and this is my question, were they breaking in some way that didn't involve changing the password?
Some of them they were, yes. Some of them were coming in through back doors that the manufacturer had left in for maintenance purposes. So there was one of them where you could send a particular packet, and when you sent that packet, it would open a port and accept a telnet request without a password. So it didn't matter how carefully you changed your password.
Nothing you could do. Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's not true for all of them, and yes, you should try. But in the end, these particular devices were so badly constructed that you could, however hard you tried, except if you put them on an isolated network with, basically full ingress control, then you couldn't do it.
Let me ask you a question, and this is just a total opinion, blue sky thing, but couldn't you detect the fact that the device is being abused and go, well, wait a minute, this is completely anormal traffic. Let's shut down or something. Well, maybe not shut down. I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe not shut down because
that's. I mean, two things. One of which is one of the joys of webcams is that yes, they generate a lot of bits. Like that's what they do.
Yeah.
So it's a bit harder to detect. But if you look at what Google are doing, they're heading in that direction internally. So for their own corporate network, they take the assumption that the corporate network has already compromised, and that you should be looking for abusive behavior on the ingress into each machine.
Right.
And as you say, abnormal patterns, and it's depressingly like virus detection.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you struck something in my head with Google, but now I forgot what I was going to say. Okay, Diggs never got his audio working, so he either gave up or is working on that. Hopefully he is.
Hopefully he'll drop back. But
and James, he had good video, which is annoying that he didn't have any audio at all.
Yeah, I'm guessing the wrong microphone, or he may have the problem that I always have, which is that every now and then I have to reboot my Mac because Chrome loses track of where the audio device is.
Interesting. And you have to reboot for that? I've never.
Yeah.
I have never had that problem.
I think it's something like, when you get through 100 video calls without a reboot, then Chrome loses it. It somehow sort of feels like it's associated with closing the clamshell as well.
I have never had that for some
I
reason.
have it on a pretty regular basis. I mean, once every couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And speaking of all that, again, I had another comment I was going to make, but so we're waiting on James. Andy's here. Michael had to leave. There's some other news. We want to talk later about the Pixel and the Google offerings, which are iPhone pricing almost. And of course,
I mean that's amusing as well. But so I mean, I think you're right that there's sort of guild of people who take some responsibility is interesting, but one has to get to the point where the thing is of decent quality before that kit starts being applicable.
Well, the backdoor thing is worrying for sure.
Right.
If they're going to do it that way, there's almost nothing you can do except because that would be beyond the average person who knows a little about hardware and is doing this for a couple of bucks. That would be someone who knows the firmware inside. Now, that would be somebody like Dave Tott or you or somebody else who's, not that you've done this that I know of, but you could, someone who's actually analyzed all the firmware and knows where all the holes are. And that's not going to be somebody in your neighborhood, probably.
Well, and even then, it's not obvious that the tools to fix it are available. I mean,
right.
You can probably do stuff at the at the router. And I mean, one of the things you can do is make the routers smarter. But then you're assuming that, this is the other topic that cropped up last night, which is actually really, really scary, but also interesting, that one of these compromised devices on your LAN, okay, it can DDoS Brian Krebs, and that's interesting, but it also completely subverts the fact that you've got a router. Like, all of the protection you thought the router was giving you, you've now got like a spy in the cab. You've got a compromised device inside the firewall. Right. And even more fun, those most domestic routers, a device within the firewall can say, "Hey, open these ports for me, will you?"
Yeah, there's no protection at all from the inside.
Well, not only is there no protection, but from within inside, you can tell the router to drop what little protection there used to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, how does IPv6 factor into this? Because that's always going to be the question. Does it matter? I mean, or is it?
Oh dear.
I mean, is IPv6 something that can be exploited?
So popular with our friends.
No, just this answer. Here's a simple formulation of the question, which is there more exploitation of version 4 or version 6 in your opinion?
Oh, so v4 is easier to exploit it. Well, so it depends on how you deploy v6. I mean, one of the problems with v6. Mr. Diggs.
And we've got audio from Diggs. Okay, Diggs.
Okay, Diggs.
What's
what
up?
Are you doing? Tell us where you are.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Excellent. So I am in Lisbon, Portugal, at the Pixels Camp, which is a pretty cool developer conference here. It's very well attended. And I'm here with Cisco and Tropo and Meraki, and hosting a 48-hour hackathon and lots of talks, and it's actually really cool at a really cool venue in Lisbon called the LX Factory, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with, but it's kind of like this converted old factory district that has now been revitalized with lots of cool shops and some venues. It's right under the bridge. Actually, I'm looking at the bridge right over there. So anyway, that's where I am.
So what are Meraki's APIs? Obviously, I know Tropo's APIs, and I kind of know some of Cisco Sparks, but what do Meraki do?
So Meraki's got, and you're asking me, and by the way, my least knowledgeable part of all this, because but there is a Meraki guy right behind me, so if we want to get too technical, but anyway, Meraki's got CMX API that allows you to control and see the heat maps of your coverage for your Wi-Fi. As a matter of fact, the guys that are directly behind me they're actually hacking a problem that they're having with, but you can see visually your like a heat map of your coverage. You can see who's connected to your to it, and it gives you a map of where the devices are that are connected. But it only works if you have at least 3 access points, so it can triangulate where things are. It's pretty cool.
Diggs, I think this is breaking news because I'm hearing actually at least one female voice behind you.
There are some females here. There's a lot of the Cisco Portugal team here, and they have some females. We even have a really young female right there. So I was gonna try to find someplace quieter, but apparently you guys can hear me. And I bought these new fancy headphones, so they seem to work pretty good.
No, we're fine. We're fine.
Cool. So Tim, I see you've got something I recognize from the playa behind you.
It's this is the original prototype, so it's only got 12 stars as opposed to 240. But it's the thing I use to test the code on. So it's there. It's not twinkling at the moment. I should get it back to twinkling, but for the moment it's running the test pattern. So,
and I'm also directly in front of me. You can see the crust there. Tim, you might recognize him from the playa as well. Austin is here.
yeah, excellent. No, I saw on the live cast on the competing channel that he was there, which is cool.
Yeah. So we got him hired, and we're actually working on getting another guy that was in our camp this year hired to join
Cool.
the DevNet evangelism team.
So what are people hacking? Have you got a sense of what people are hacking on?
Yeah, it's interesting because this is the first time we've done. There's one of the other sponsors of the event is Slack. So usually when we go out and do events like this, we're kind of promoting Spark and Tropo, which is, for those who don't know, Spark is Cisco's collaboration tool that is competitive with Slack. And so we were asked politely to minimize our Spark promotion. So I'm finding a lot of the teams are starting with Tropo and then getting interested in the Meraki APIs, and we're seeing some teams doing interesting things with getting text message notifications when you're in a new Wi-Fi access point zone, or your signal is getting degraded and stuff like that. So it's kind of interesting. I've not experienced a Wi-Fi access point Tropo mashup before.
No, indeed.
And so yeah, we're seeing some interesting things.
Yeah,
actually, if you want, Austin's been talking a lot more with the teams. I just kind of got here this morning, or got here this afternoon. But he's been here all day, so I can hand the headphones over to him, and he can probably explain a little bit more. Hey, Austin, you want to chat about with these guys about some of the hacks that you're seeing that are using our stuff? You can. Yeah. Hang on one second.
Perfect. That's great. So we're going to hear from Austin from Pixel Camp. Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
We're good. It looks like a great venue you've got there. I hadn't seen it properly before.
Yeah, this was a set of abandoned warehouses that 10 years ago the city of Lisbon took over and turned into like this artist market space. There's a lot of street art and really cool little shops. So very, very cool venue.
So Diggs was talking about the Meraki API and what you can do with it, but he kind of said that you'd seen more of the hacks that people have been doing with it. So I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think one of my favorites is a combination of the Meraki Connected Mobile Experience CMX API and Tropo, where they've developed an SMS chat game that's geolocation, and there's good guys and bad guys throughout the venue using the indoor location tracking provided through the Meraki access points. You can see where everybody is. Everybody with a cell phone that has Wi-Fi or any Wi-Fi connected device, you can see their location. And so the game is good guys and bad guys. And the bad guys plant a bomb, the good guys get notified and have the opportunity to go over to that location and disable it. And all the communication is done through Tropo, and all the location tracking is done through Meraki and CMX. So that's been one of my favorites so far.
No, that's quite cute. Cool. Well, thanks for that. And it's it looks like a great venue. It's a shame I didn't make it over there, but one has to work sometimes.
Excellent. I'll give you back to Dig. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Thanks, Austin.
It's like a radio broadcast or something right now.
Cool.
So yeah, I forgot about that one. You told me about that a little earlier. But yeah, there's just like I said before, it's like some of we haven't seen this the capabilities of what the Meraki access points can do, and I've never even owned one. But now I think I'm going to get a few to play with because.
Yeah, you obviously need 3.
Yes, at least 3. I'll see if I can get them to put the heat map up on the screen. If
it's kind of white from here, actually. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, I can probably. Can you put the heat map up? Yeah. Let's see if I can.
We kind of see it right now. Yeah.
So say something, Diggs, and we'll get your focus back.
I put him on focus.
Hello. So.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So you can see, where the green dots are where the access points are, and the other dots are people connected to the network. And obviously the red in the middle is where the strongest signal is, and then the green on the outside is. Where you could probably get signal, but it starts to degrade quickly.
That's cool. I'd not seen that done before.
Yeah. So that's just one aspect of the of what the Meraki API or the CMX can do, and you can access all that data through the API. So cool stuff. One of the benefits of working with Cisco is we get to play with some of the technology that is not part of the telephony world.
Yeah, no, I'm enjoying that myself. So there you go. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for that. I don't know if anybody else has got questions. I kind of monopolized this, but
I'm very interested in what you guys are doing tonight, Diggs. Where are you drinking?
So it's crazy because the hotel that we're staying at the Sheraton in Lisbon, and in the lobby is one of the most amazing pianos I've ever seen. It's I don't even know if I could call it a grand piano because the design is so futuristic. And so of course the other night we were down hanging out in the lobby, and it was getting to be closing time, and I walked over, and the lid was closed, and I kind of gave it a little test because sometimes they lock those things down, and sure enough I lifted it open, and then I walked over to the bartender and I said, do you mind if I play? And she actually said, no, you're not allowed to, and then she winked at me. And I was like, okay. So I went over and played, started playing some Elton John, and just then a group of people who are obviously coming back from some event, and there were probably 30 or 40 of them, just happened to walk in for last call, and suddenly I was playing a show. and at the end, and then she actually came over and bought me, gave me a free drink and said that I was more entertaining than most of the entertainers that they hired to play there, which was, flattering.
I hope you're wearing your Cisco shirt at the time.
Always. Actually, I ran out. I'm wearing my International Space App shirt today because I didn't even plan to be here. I did a talk at Jeff Pulver's new conference a couple weeks ago. He's doing a new thing called, instead of voice on the net, it's messaging on the net. So it's focusing on all of the new, Slack and Spark and chat bots and all of that. And it's interesting to see, Jeff Pulver, who I'm sure all of you know him from the Bond days, Pulver order, and he's, pretty much single-handedly the reason why we're having a free call right now. and not having to be charged for voice over IP. And then I flew to Orlando for a few days. I was supposed to be heading back to San Francisco, but this event came up, and they were short-staffed, and they asked if I would be willing to come check it out. But going back to Jeff's thing, there was some really interesting discussions, and one of them was so they had the attorney, or the guy who's head of the Vaughn, I think it's the Vaughn Council, basically the group of the telecom and internet folks that have been fighting to keep, voice over IP free and classified as not a telecom thing. And then they had the attorney that represents Twilio. Hey, James. The attorney that represents Twilio, and I don't know if you guys have been following, but Twilio has been pushing the FCC to classify SMS as a telecom, under telecom regulations, because they make a lot of their money in SMS, obviously, and the telecoms have pretty much arbitrarily will block their messages if they think that they're, potentially spammy or whatever. But there's no regulations, and so Twilio is pushing to get SMS classified as a telecom service. And Jeff and the Vaughn guys were very vocally against this, because they said, well, if SMS is classified as that, we lose all of the arguments that we've been pushing for voice not to be classified, or voice over IP to be classified that way. So it's a very interesting discussion. I don't know. I'd be interested to hear you guys' take on that, because it caused quite a stir. And Jeff's going to be doing more of these events. I mean, this was the first one he did in Boston, but he has, he's jumped back into the conference world. He's not doing, he still does 140 conf, but I kind of encouraged him a couple years back that I said, Jeff, you got to get back to your roots, and there's a lot of people out there that kind of need to have these kinds of discussions, because I'm not seeing them happen at a lot of the big events. And so he created a really nice, intimate event. He had discussion, the founders of ICQ were there, and a couple of, guy from the FCC was there. Anyway, so, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's an interesting space. I mean, there's always a lot of push and shove. I mean, we were actually speaking before you joined us. We were talking about what regulation was actually necessary in the IoT space, because the devices are so insecure and are actually a threat to people's privacy, and also, actually in general to the internet. That huge DDoS is an example of like how dangerous they are if they're insecure. And you get things like anyway. So we were talking about what level of active regulation should be taking place in that space. I mean, I don't know when that's going to happen or how, but it feels like something has to happen, because people are just like doing it too badly at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it was just interesting, because if we go down the road that, and Twilio is obviously a public company now, their stock keeps going up somehow. I think the last I looked, it was over $60 a share, and there's been a lot of speculation that it's way overinflated. But they've been really pushing this to get SMS qualified as under some regulations that so the service providers have to follow some certain rules. But you know, if we go down that slippery slope, how long until, you know, we lose Facebook, you know, video, we lose Google Hangouts, we lose, you know, all of the voice over IP services that we've come to rely on. And
I think that's a little bit over dramatic. We're not going to lose them. It may make change the way that they're presented, but we're not going to lose them, Johnny. I mean,
well,
I know you like a little bit of drama, but we're certainly not going to lose them, are we? The world is not going to lose voice over IP, not now.
Well, it wouldn't lose voice over IP, but what could it lose free voice over IP?
Well, I think it's a little bit late to try and enforce tariffing on voice over IP as well. That's not going to happen.
There are still telcos and governments who would dearly love to, and would jump at the chance.
Yeah, but it's just not going to happen.
They're all using.
Really, you're down a deep well there. Like there's a sort of a Randy down a deep tunnel there.
Yeah, he's bought himself a new synthesizer or something, hasn't he?
Lots of vocoder.
Randy demonstrating what happens to Opus codec when you go past.
No, it's
packet loss.
it's that I've got like 200K up. Maybe it's even less now. So this is the laptop. Anyway, I'll shut up.
But you ought to be okay with 200K.
You sound fine now. You've turned the video off, actually.
Anyway.
No, it's because I'm talking on a different computer. And what I said was that all of the carriers are using VoIP, are all of the ISPs. So it's not going to really disappear. And all of our, I mean, I can call anywhere in the world almost for free now. So who needs VoIP anyway? But we're using it on the ISP.
So, anyway, I do have to run, guys. I appreciate it's good to see all of your faces and chat with you. It's been a while since I've had a chance to join the VUC, and I'm glad to see that you're still alive and kicking.
Yeah, we miss you, Johnny. Get yourself over here to Europe.
I'm in Europe. I'm in Lisbon right now, and if
how are you?
I'll tell you what. You know, I've been watching closely because there's a hurricane that almost just barreled over my house in Orlando, and now they're predicting that it might actually loop around and hit Florida again. And I'm supposed to fly back to the States on Sunday through Newark, and I'm thinking rather than possibly get trapped in Newark, I might stick around and maybe come up and visit you guys up in the islands.
Yes, in Brexit land.
Hey, Diggs, before we let you go, I just want to mention that apparently the idea that I launched with you a couple of years ago for Astricon for a talent show and music and all that.
Yeah,
now there's some traction on that.
I was very
so if
I was very disappointed when the year that we had it in Orlando that I was completely prepared and not only there, a sponsor, and could have totally made that happen, and yet Randy did not appear.
No, well, that's because they didn't want to help us. That's right.
Yeah, but
so the point is that if this happens again, I have to take my earphones off because I'm getting echo because I'm talking to two different systems. Just a quick one though, Diggs. If that opportunity comes up again, now apparently Danny has even mentioned it, and Astricon hopefully be on the East Coast this year. So let's try to make that happen because I'm not going to be around that much longer on this planet.
I would love that, and would definitely be one of the things that I've learned that Cisco seems to be 100% supportive of me performing, and it's funny because my other dueling piano player friends call me the least talented, highest paid performer on the planet. But we actually had I was able to bring one of my buddies to Cisco Live in Las Vegas, and we did a live dueling piano show for happy hour in the developer zone every night, with requests and he also plays accordion. So during the day we'd stroll around and do roaming accordion shows. It was a big hit. So and it just so happened the first night we were doing it, and I have a great picture of this. Chuck Robbins, the new CEO of Cisco, happened to be someone was giving him a tour through the developer zone, and we were performing. I happened to be in the middle of singing "Bad Bad Leroy Brown," and I just changed. Instead of Leroy Brown, I said "Bad Bad Chuck Robbins." Baddest CEO in the whole damn town, and he laughed so hard and thought I was the most brilliant performer that he'd ever seen. So
He needs to get out more.
Yeah, I know. But it was like, it was just a silly thing, and just it just so happened that he walked by and it happened to be singing a song about a man with the same number of syllables as his name. So,
Excellent.
Anyway, all right, guys. Well, good to see you, and I will make an effort to join more. Tim, thanks for poking me to.
Good, really good to see you, and I'll let you get back to doing some work.
And if I don't, if it looks like the hurricane's going to keep me from heading back to the States, I will definitely come up and visit you guys.
Cool, that'd be great.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right,
thank you, Dave.
And say bye to Austin.
Bye. I will.
Waving now. Right, can we move on to phase 3, which is hang
The cage match.
Oh, you're going to do that, are you?
Well, yeah, of course.
Somebody has to set this up.
Can I
It can't be
read
me.
you what Tim
I have-
wrote on Twitter 4 days ago?
No, hang on. First, we need to get the betting pool established.
We're not betting on this.
I think it might be a time-related bet.
What if I fall asleep before it? No, no mind.
No, an implementation time-related bet.
No. Anyway.
So we need the context. Come on, James.
Well, do you want to
Set it
introduce?
up.
Well, okay. Well, 4 days ago, Tim posted on Twitter, "This is insane." This is in the context of operators closing down 2G GSM. So Tim said, "This is insane. 2G is perfect for IoT. Long range, good battery life, but no, they have to install the new 5G hotness, letting Sigfox in."
Yep.
Well, there are a number of things that immediately got me going as soon as I saw that.
I've got to say that managing to get all of that in one tweet, I'm actually really pleased with myself. I managed to push about 8 of James's buttons in a single tweet.
And yeah, you certainly did. And what really then amused me was that a number of people were actually coming in and kind of semi-backing you up. And I thought, stop, Twitter population. We just need to set the record right about what's happening with 5G and why the mobile network operators are turning off 2G.
Yeah.
Okay,
so let me just complete. I want to complete my argument because it was 140 characters, and you can't do justice to an argument. I just want to state my point, which is that at this moment, this device is a GSM 2G GPRS modem for IoT. They're $6 a piece on Alibaba. So for $6, I can plug this into my my IoT device, and I can have intermittent connectivity pretty much anywhere in the world where 2G coverage is pretty extensive. So almost anywhere in the world, I can get 2G on for $5 now, and that's ideal for something where you're going to send 10 bits of data a day. So a few 100K a day. And maybe you're going to send 2 commands down a day. That is that device. And these things, right? So this particular chipset has this lovely attribute that it will sleep. You can put the whole thing to sleep, and it just leaves a tiny corner of it running, enough to spot when it gets an incoming SMS. and then you can then power up the rest of the chipset based on an incoming SMS. So this thing, there is nothing. My core point was that there is nothing in the 4 or 5G spectrum that is anything like as cheap or efficient as that yet. And
Well,
until there is, they're crazy to shut it down.
There is.
There isn't.
There is.
$6 that'll run off a LiPo for a week. I think not.
Run off a LiPo for a week. How about running off a LiPo for 10 years? How does that grab you?
I don't believe that I can buy it on Alibaba for $6.
You can't buy it off Alibaba. There's still development chipsets. However, middle of next year, it'll be live everywhere.
Not a chance.
Well, I think there is a chance. So let me tell you about what the mobile industry are doing about IoT. Clearly, the mobile industry is very, very focused on IoT, and you will be amazed if they haven't come up with a solution to service.
I've seen their solutions to problems, and they're usually hugely overpriced, hugely overcomplicated, and it takes them about 10 years to iterate down to something that actually works.
Well, this time, I think they've actually got it right. So they've the 3GPP went away, and they thought about this, and they came up with a technical solution which uses a similar modulation scheme, so basically an OFDM modulation scheme, but works in a much narrower channel. And they designed it so that it would fit into the same 200 kilohertz wide channels as existing 2G GSM. So the plan effectively is that they're going to knock off the GSM and replace it with M-IoT or Cat-M LTE. And Cat-M LTE has some huge advantages. Because it's a simpler chipset, the target price on launch is a $5 modem device, and they're going to be selling these for $5. They're making them now. They were demonstrating them last year at Mobile World Congress.
Well, so James, I'm happily prepared to be proved wrong.
I haven't finished yet, but there are other advantages. You said 2G is perfect for IoT, long range.
Yep.
Well, actually, 2G doesn't have particularly long range, but
20-something miles.
Yeah, but the range of radio system is not measured in distance. It's measured in path loss and decibels between the transmit and receive aerial, as I used to teach my students once upon a time. The M-IoT has a radio path capability some 20 dB better than GSM, than 2G. But you say 20 dB, how can that be possible? Well, the answer is because it's a modern waveform. It's like comparing, as I said earlier, it's like comparing G729 with Opus.
And 729 is a superbly bad example, James, because it was patent incumbent.
Well, GSM is also patent incumbent, and it uses a modulation scheme which basically was put together in the mid-70s.
I think you'll find it isn't patent incumbent anymore. That's the point, which is why they're moving away from it, because they're stopping their monopoly, their ability to control the monopoly through the patent system is rotting, and that is why they're moving away from it.
Long range,
yes,
I can test that. MIoT, 20 dB better. And when we move forward to the 5G waveforms, that 20 dB goes out to 30 to 35 dB better. 30 to 35.
And I think all of these lovely toys will be wonderful. And if they ship them this decade, I will buy you 2 pink drinks. Right? the chances, honestly,
I haven't finished yet.
PPP getting off their asses and shipping anything for $5 this decade is just, the Sims will cost that. There is no way.
Let's talk about authentication then.
Gemalto.
One of the problems with 2G is you need a SIM card. But do you know what IoT is doing? They've got two flavors. There's embedded SIM,
Yes.
and then they've got soft SIM.
Two flavors of carrier lock you've got there, I bet you. Look, James,
depending on whether the thing's going to move around or not, you can choose the two. But what that does is, again, it dramatically reduces the complexity and price.
You know, I have only one answer to you, which is exactly what you do to everybody else on this show, which is show me a demo, James. I don't believe it until you can show me a demo.
Well, I think we might just
you're
that.
talking a good talk there, James.
We might just do that. Okay, deployment options. There are 3 deployment options defined for MIoT.
You're even sounding like the 3GPP.
The first one
deployment options are defined. I want to see the damn thing.
Just shut up and listen, you twerp. So the first deployment option is where you just drop it into the existing 200 kilohertz GSM channels, and the chipsets that are around at the moment operate on those existing GSM channels. So if you think of back a couple of years ago, your state-of-the-art phone was a quad-band GSM phone, and you'll find that the existing chipsets for MIoT operate on exactly the same 4 bands that your quad-band GSM phone of about 10 years ago used to work on. So the plan is that the mobile network operators can use all their same towers, duplex filters, antennas, the whole lot. And a little bit on the end, the little kind of modem board is the only bit that you have to change. And once you've done that, everything becomes software definable. So upgrading from a 4G LTE waveform to a 5G waveform is, well, almost trivial.
I think this is a lovely picture you painted. And if I hadn't worked with telcos before, I would be enthusiastic about it.
Well, let's move on a little bit further. Another problem with 2G is the capacity that you can, how many endpoints you can hang off a single cell. There is a finite limit, and it's around, it's just over 1,000 per cell or sector, something like that. And it's all to do with the way the registration process works. Now, if you look at MIoT, well, the problem with IoT is you're going to have many, many, many more devices being served by a single cell. So you've got to come up with a technical solution that serves many more. And surprise, surprise, MIoT does exactly that. And how many endpoints on a single cell, Andy? Who's muted?
If you work on the basis that each one requires 2 ports, it's about 30,000.
Yeah, so a factor of about times 30 more. So,
and I repeat, I think these are wonderful changes. And my point in the tweet was that removing 2G now, before this thing has happened and before there's any prospect of it actually shipping, and leaving a gap which will, I promise you, be filled by people like Sigfox and LoRa, is a mistake.
The reason that 2G is being turned off is to turn on the MIoT.
I simply don't believe it, James.
Well,
I'd love it to be true, but the chances of that switchover being that quick.
2G is just not spectrally efficient.
I understand all that.
It's kind of crazy.
But I tell you what will happen. I tell you exactly what will happen. What will happen is that they'll switch off 2G, and then there'll be a immeasurable number of communities who will cease to have a phone signal. At which point there'll be a huge amount of pressure to backport LTE or 3G to those places. The frequencies will get used for other things, and it won't turn out for IoT.
Well, that's
we'll get some hodgepodge
that's not true.
Of deployment, and it will take years. And in that time, and this is the thing that bothers me most, in that time, Sigfox, LoRa, and a bunch of other people will be cramming in functionality in ISM because there's nowhere else to do it. And that's just
I don't know where you're getting this message of doom and gloom about turning off 2G. The radio path capability of 4G LTE is 15 to 20 dB, depending on better than 2G. So depending on what mode you're running, coverage will actually get better.
Have you it's never been the case that you've been somewhere where you have a 2G signal and no 4G signal? Like, I have that all the time. I'm regularly find myself in places where I have a 2G signal but no 4G signal. And you're telling me that the radio path for 4G is better. So I should always have 4G wherever I am.
No, actually, in my experience, it's not that the radio path is always better. It has to do with carrier coverage, lack of overlap.
Yeah.
You know, I may have 4G from AT&T, but I'm a T-Mobile customer, so I get 2G grandfathered in.
Yeah, and one of the problems that we have is that the 2G antennas tend to be in the best positions on the tower anyway, and so with the you fill in and you put on new antennas, and they tend to go into slightly worse places. The exception to that, of course, is in UK is EE, because they're just refarming the existing 1800 spectrum, which allows them to run. In fact, they're running in some instances the 2G and 4G waveforms at the same time on the same radio head and the same antenna, which is interesting. And by the way, coming back to deployment options, that's one of the deployment options for MIOT. Again, you've got two options there. One is where you're very, very tight for spectrum. What you do is you just put the MIOT waveform, the 200 kilohertz wide channel, right in the middle of the LTE waveform. The drawback of that is that you degrade your performance a little bit, but you stick within your existing LTE band plan.
I'm so looking forward to the moment where I can buy one of these that works just as well as this, but is using 4G, and that would be lovely.
In UK. That will
in the UK, and
that will be about Easter time next year.
It'll be a decade. It won't happen this decade, James.
Tim, that's total bollocks. That is total bollocks.
Right.
It's just untrue. Untrue.
I'm basing this on my experience of how.
Yeah, but the move to MIOT is one of the easiest upgrades.
But it doesn't mean they'll actually do it, James.
We only have 3 years left. 3 years left in this one.
Right, and there's not a chance it'll happen in 3 years. And those 3 years are the 3 years in which the standards will get established in IoT. So if you guys don't get your fingers out, which you won't because you're telcos, then you'll lose that market.
Okay,
and the reason I care about this is that I really want IP end-to-end. And the problem with Sigfox and LoRa is they're not IP end-to-end.
Okay,
and so you're blowing my chance at IP end-to-end by pissing about like this.
MIOT supports both IP and non-IP based small data over the network. And when we say IP, it's both, just for you and Uli, it's both V4 and V6.
Of course it is.
Of course it is.
Excellent. I mean, I am very much looking forward to this, but I think
standard interfaces. Let me go tell you a little bit more about these standard devices. And so they come up with a standard specification for the thing, so that every Chinese manufacturer can churn these out in huge quantities. So the interfaces on there, as standard, there'll be a UART, a serial peripheral interface, that's the four-wire thing, a couple of GPIOs, general purpose IOs, and then a DDC for the GNSS, that's the Global Navigation Satellite System. So they're location aware as well.
That's exactly what these have already for $5. So from the point of view of the end user, the only thing you've told me is that there may be a mode which allows me to buy one of these for the same amount of money in 3 years' time, which doesn't need a SIM. That's the only benefit for me. All of the benefits you've come out with so far are entirely to the benefit of the telco. There's no benefit.
Hit you with another benefit. Let's talk about power, shall we? Power consumption. You said that you can operate that on LiPo battery for how many days?
Well, I don't know. My Nokia phone seems to last about a week on 2G, so I'm basing it on that.
Okay, and the state-of-the-art 2G Nokia handsets now will work for about 30 days.
All right. Well, let's take it
with
at
a
30
battery.
days.
Okay, but the design of the MIoT devices is to operate for 10 years with a 2,000 milliamp hour lithium battery, and the form factor of that. And if I had been a little bit more prepared, I was going to knock up a little slideshow with pictures so I could show you these things, because they do exist. An example of that is a pet collar that you put around the collar of your dog, and it allows you to track the movement of the pet, and it has a battery life of 10 years.
James, I admire your ability to stay optimistic in the face of repeated, let's say, tardiness in terms of of our friends in the 3GPP. I've heard these wondrous stories of how fantastic things will be in the future before, and to be fair, they often turn out, but they usually turn out about 10 years after they said they would.
Okay, I'll tell you what.
Like LTE, how long did it take? Now LTE's been a quick deployment by their terms.
Let's tell you what we can do. Let's set a date in the diary for 1 year's time.
You said a year's time, didn't you?
A year's time, and we'll come back to this one in a year's time, and we'll examine what has happened in 12 months.
Right. So the test is whether I have on my desk a $5 thing that will do IP.
A $5 thing that will do IP.
Yes. I don't, and if it uses 4G, that's great.
I shall return.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Well, that's the point.
I'll tell you what. We'll set a date for a year's time, and we'll come back to this one. We will examine it again. But I'm telling you that these things are coming, and the network operators are saying this is going to be the easiest network update we've ever done.
And I wish them joy of it. I just have hugely
and
skeptical. The stakes are extremely high. If they blow it, then they will lose that market for good.
You can already buy these devices, and again, if I was really organized, if you go to ovphone.cn, that's OVIPHONE.cn, it's a Chinese watch manufacturer, and they make little smart watches, and the latest iteration, they've just made a batch for Disney, which is an MIoT capable smartwatch, which allows kids that are running around in Disneyland to be tracked, and they can use their smartwatches.
Give me the URI again.
I think it's well, if you search for it, you should be able to find it. It's OVIPHONE is the brand name, OVphone.
I mean movie phone. No,
OVIPHONE, and the marketing and sales director of OVphone was presenting at Mobile World Congress last year, and actually demonstrating these bits of kit. In fact,
did he bring his own tower with him then?
Well, stop! Just behave yourself.
No, I'm serious. Where did you run this 4G thing against? So I see some Bluetooth watches.
Yeah.
Did we define, or did you actually define this missing in action, all these acronyms, by the way? Because I'm not familiar with any of that. What is the main thing we're talking about here, please?
We're talking about MIoT, or to use the 3GPP.
Missing IoT.
It's category M.
So the idea is so here's the target is, if I take this sculpture, right, and I want to put it in a sculpture park in somewhere, and I want to be able to connect to it and check that it's working, how much do I have to spend to be able to put in a low bandwidth IP connection to it in the middle of, somewhere with coverage? And the current cheapest solution is this, which is $5. Well, in quantity, it's $5. This one cost me a bit more, but you get these, you plug them into your Raspberry Pi, you put a SIM in it, and you have an IP connection.
Yeah, in fact, I'd like to challenge Tim. Tim, can you drop a link on AliExpress where you can actually buy these things for $5?
I just did. I did in the tweet.
Did you?
Yeah, in the tweet chain, I mentioned it. If you Google SIM 800 on Alibaba.
Okay. All right. Something else which I need to pack in.
Wait. One last thing. One last question on that. This is a SIM card or an eSIM?
What?
No. So it's a thing that you can.
It's a GSM modem into which you have to put a SIM to make it work.
So imagine, Randy, let's step back a bit. Imagine you have a Raspberry Pi or some equivalent device, and it's in the back of some, it's in the back of your Coke machine or your sculpture or whatever, and you need to periodically connect to it over the internet. How much does that cost? That device cost, and how does it communicate over the internet? And currently, most of those devices use the 2G spectrum because they don't need a huge amount of bandwidth, and the 2G coverage is pretty good. So what triggered this was the announcement that Vodafone, I think Australia, were proposing to switch off 2G next year. And I said that I thought this was insane because all of those Coke machines and anyone who's building something now has no option but to go to a non-carrier platform in order to be able to communicate with them. Because the carriers don't have an option, have anything I can use at the moment. And they told me that the one thing that does work, they're going to switch off. So I'm left without a choice but to go to an organization like Sigfox or one of the other non-carrier people who are using other communication channels, other radio frequencies to do this. And I'm just saying that I think the carriers are shooting themselves in the foot by announcing a switch-off date without having equivalent press and equivalent conviction of a replacement being available, which they just isn't, and they won't be. James is confident that this time next year they will be, but I bet you that by the time they switch off, there will not be a replacement.
Commercial deployment, Q1 2017. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 operators here. I'll very quickly list them: China Mobile, China Unicom, Etisalat, LG U+, which is Korean operator, Telefonica, T-Mobile Germany, Korea Telecom KT in Korea, KDDI in Japan, Verizon in US, and Vodafone in UK. All of those operators are rolling out MIOT Q1, so directly after Christmas, so January 2017.
And I believe that when I see it.
Well, we'll come back in a year's time, and we'll.
No, we can come back in Q1 at the end, March 30th.
Okay.
Huh? March 30th.
Another thing that we should be able to do in UK, hopefully, Tim, is you should be able to deploy your own MIOT infrastructure.
What a wonderful idea. I'd love to, James. I don't believe you.
If you check the Ofcom website, you'll find that there are two things going on. One is there are moves afoot to make portions of the 800 megahertz spectrum, that's the EU digital dividend band, aka UMTS band 20, EUDD band, that parts of that are going to go to license shared access. Okay, so anybody who wants spectrum should be able to bid for it, just like bidding for a lease on IP addresses using DHCP. And then, in addition to that, the DECGAR band spectrum, the top end of 1800, is also coming up for review again. And that is ideally absolutely ideal for low power, small cell MIoT use.
And I think this would be absolutely wonderful. I would dearly love all of these things to come true. I'm just much more cynical than you, and I fear that this won't happen. There will be a long hiatus in which there is nothing suitable for IoT.
You see, listening into all of this, it's really obvious that you have faith in technology, James, and you lack faith in the carriers and the players involved, Tim. And these are not mutually exclusive points of view.
But you know what? I work for a carrier, and guess what we're doing? So things like low-cost authentication on NFV-based HSS, that sort of thing, together with soft SIM. Who's doing that right at the moment? I mean, think about that. I mean, I know that all these things are possible. We're selling them today.
Is that carrier anomalous?
Does that carrier have any towers near me?
Well, the whole point of this, Tim, is you put in your own. Well, it's not a tower.
But I'm not allowed to yet.
But you...
Right, so there's a gap. Now, the key point in this is that in the gap between announcing a switch off and having a replacement available, to my mind, that's a 3-year gap. In your mind, it's
not
a year.
A 3-year. Well,
no, it's a year. Even at minimum, James, it's a year, because they've announced they're going to switch off now, but they haven't announced a comprehensive replacement that we can start using. So there's a year in which Sigfox and the other people are just going to make hay.
It's not going to be a year gap, is it?
But it is. I mean, at minimum, it's going to be a year. I can't order this stuff on Alibaba.
The 2G transmitters are not going to just turn off and stay off. They're just going to change their waveform. That's the whole point, Tim. You're not going to turn off.
I can connect. They've done the usual thing that technology companies who aren't paying attention to marketing do, which is they announce the replacement before they have it.
Well, just wait. I guarantee that after Christmas.
And that's how more technology companies have gone broke than ever. Like if you announce a replacement.
Yeah, after Christmas, the old MIoT marketing machine will move into action.
I'm deeply looking forward to it.
The trials are complete. They work. The kit works.
And that's never had anything to do with where the carriers ship it.
And it's not complex stuff. I mean, going to class 1, 2, 3 LTE, that is quite complex because you've got these multiple modes of operation. But this is going backwards. It's simplifying things. And class M is easy by comparison. It's easy.
Well, if you look at I would love this to be happening right now, but I'm deeply skeptical.
Coming to the end of this, your original statement of 2G is perfect for IoT long range. Well, it's not long range. Good battery life. It's not good battery life. MIoT is just 100 times better.
Of all of the technologies currently available, those things are true. Now, if you believe in your crystal ball and you're comfortable that these people will deliver the things they say they will deliver on time, then you're right. There are will in the future be better alternatives, but they're not here yet. And in the interim, you're going to get comprehensively shafted. Well, and I will suffer because I won't get my PN2N.
You're not going to suffer. Yeah, 2G is not going to be turned off in UK for some little time yet. And you'll find that some operators will be a little bit slow. Vodafone have actually put an awful lot of time and effort into being the leading MIoT operator in UK. And the reason for that is they've kind of lost the LTE race. The high speed race to the other operators. They've got to do something to to establish themselves in a kind of strong position. So,
bizarrely, I'm actually in a my particular space. Vodafone is the best LTE provider.
Well, you should be well served then for MIoT then.
I'm hoping so, but I hope it springs eternal and all that.
Yeah. Well, I think your defense is based upon just being skeptical.
No, it's based on what is physically present now.
Might also be based on what has happened in the past and the times that it's taken to implement these technologies. You have to admit.
This technology does exist. You can buy the chipsets today. In fact, the most
you can buy the chipset today, and let's look back at other technologies and how long it's taken for the stuff to become completely available from the day you could buy the chipset. That would be
in fact, the most common one is something. It's made by a company called the U-Blox, UBLOX. It's a SARA-N203 Cat MB1 module, supporting 850, 900, and 800 EU digital dividend bands, embedded SIM, IPv4, IPv6, operating parameters, 227 kilobit per second download speed, 21 kilobit per second upload, IP and non-IP based small data over network, with all those standard.
And how much does it cost me?
I don't know how much.
Can I buy one?
I think you probably can, but I don't know what the price is because I didn't look that up.
I'm just looking.
So
pre-order now, it says, so I can't buy them.
Well, they are available because there are lots of people building things with them.
It says pre-order now.
Oh, and something else you can do with them. This is very interesting. Something you can't do with GSM is you can do a very effective multicast as well. So you can push out the same signal to multiple end devices all at the same time. Now that's quite useful, isn't it?
I'm looking at their diagram is sideways, so I have to turn my head to try and understand it.
Anyway, so I think the future is bright for IoT.
The future looks, there are a lot of nice things in this. I just don't have any yet.
10-year battery life, Tim. 10 years.
Yeah, I think it's great. I love all this. I just don't believe that they will get shipped in the time. So coming back to my prognostication, which is that if they do what they normally do and they slip by 3 or 4 years, then in that time they will have lost a huge chunk of market.
So what are the alternatives?
Which they won't get back.
And don't say Sigfox. So the problem with Sigfox and the LoRaWAN stuff is that it operates in this tiny, tiny little narrowband license-free.
I'm with you, James. But what will happen is that those guys will build up to the point where it's congested, and then they'll go to Ofcom and say, "Oh, by the way, this is congested. Can we have another slice of bandwidth?" And Ofcom is going to have to say, "Well, yeah, we've got."
Well, and the answer will be yes. You can operate in the license shared access EU digital dividend band,
and they'll do that. And then your guys will who are still probably charging by the kilobyte, will get completely shafted.
But you have to completely shafted.
Yes.
How come?
Well, because the Sigfox people will have established a price floor of what people expect in the market, and you won't be able to meet it. And they will be using the same spectrum that you are, with cheaper devices that have got an established market presence.
I'm not sure that you'll be able to use LoRaWAN or Sigfox in the EU digital dividend band, actually. I think you'll be constrained on the waveforms that you can actually put in there.
I honestly, what I would really like would be that if they didn't switch off 2G until they actually had a replacement that was usable. And my fear is that there will be a gap between the two. Now, what you're telling me is that I'm wrong, and there will be no gap, and there will be perfectly good devices I will be able to buy cheaply and quickly, from the middle of next year. And if that turns out to be true, and before they switch off 2G,
well,
then that would be great. but I'm
Well,
deeply skeptical.
Well, there's still LTE and 3G devices, even though 3G is going to go away as well. Because if you compare the performance of 3G next to LTE, I mean, it's just stunningly inefficient. So,
Well, yes, and I mean, I've never met a low-powered 3G device.
yeah, and they're going to go away, and the cost of these devices is going to be tiny. Witness the fact I bought half a dozen of these EE Rook Android handsets from Argos, of all places, for £19.99 a piece. These are Android 4.4 handsets. They're 4G capable, GPS, 2 cameras, battery, display.
There's a huge carrier subsidy in that.
That's absolutely fascinating. So let's get to the final subject, which we have 5 minutes to discuss. The expensiveness of the new Google hardware and the fact that James bought a bunch of Apple stuff when he was in the States. Let's hear it. How do you justify buying that watch, first of all? I would
Well, this one is going to talk to me. That's not going to talk to me now.
Yeah, skip the demo.
How do I justify it?
Why did you do this? Why?
I can't. There is an extremely good reason why I have this particular handset, which is a US spec iPhone 7 Plus.
To do with carrier frequency. I mean, to do with frequencies.
It's not to do with frequencies. It's to do with something that's in the phone that they haven't admitted to.
Oh, really?
And I can say no more than that at
That's
this
interesting.
stage. So I had to have one of these. And whilst I was over there, I mean, it seemed churlish not to get one of these as well. And to be perfectly honest, I have been totally blown away with the functionality in the Apple Watch. It does.
Most of the people who bought those things are very disappointed in them, saying that they're absolutely not worth the price and that they don't wear them anymore. And I'm serious.
Well, it's funny. Different people have different views. But my personal view...
Early days, James.
My personal view is already after about a week and a half, I'm thinking, how did I ever manage without this? And you know what? I was very, very skeptical about the Apple Watch when I first started off. It's just like the iPad. When the iPad first came out, I thought, I can't think of a use for that bit of kit. But today, I never go anywhere without this device because it's just... Well,
James, besides giving you the time, what does the Apple Watch bring?
So many things. It's a complete body-worn communications terminal with authentication and alerting. It has its own comms. Normally, it has very rich communications capability. Normally, it's paired with this device, which does the long-range shouting. If this runs out of battery or just moves out of range, out of low-power Bluetooth BLE4, then the watch leaps on to Wi-Fi and operates independently of that. So it runs its own Wi-Fi backhaul. I have to say that does whack the battery a bit, but
and if you're in range of Wi-Fi, you're at home probably.
Yeah, but there could be a number of scenarios where perhaps this thing just runs out of battery, and if that runs out of battery, do you want your complete communication suite of communications to be totally dead? Do you want to be a black hole?
So you can do a video call, an audio call on the watch with no phone?
I can do a voice call on it. Yes. Other things I can do, and this is all just tiny little gimmicky type stuff. I can remote control the camera on my iPhone. So,
yeah, well, my $180 Android watch does all of those things, as far as I know. Maybe not VoIP calls, but everything else. It doesn't even do Wi-Fi because it's an old first gen.
How about Siri? Siri on the watch.
Oh God, you really.
So I can do things like call home, for example, and hold on.
And you called me a fanboy.
Listen to this.
God.
Here we go. It's calling home. Well, it's because it's calling my mobile actually at the moment.
Yeah.
Oh, listen. My watch is now ringing, and look,
Hang on, your watch is
And here's my home phone.
It called itself. That's artificial intelligence is called.
Hello.
How do you talk to your watch through your watch?
And I've answered my own call. So
all right, James,
I've got my own voice coming out of my watch.
James, let's cut to the chase. Did you buy Sophie one of these so that you can watch your heartbeats? Because that's probably the only real practical thing you could do.
No, rather bizarrely, I got awarded a prize. I got given another, on my other wrist, I've got this Fitbit.
Yeah.
Charge HR, top of the range Fitbit. And I got another one. So Sophie's going to have a Charge HR. And then if she's very, very lucky, she might get an Apple Watch for Christmas.
And then you can send each other hearts and emoticons.
Well,
that would be the main use.
No, it's even worse than that. She's going to be watching my exercise regime and monitoring my food intake.
That would be good.
She's going to be vibrating my wrist every 10 minutes to tell me that I need to get up and walk around a bit.
As long as it's just your wrist that she's vibrating, it's okay.
Well, exactly. She's going to be able to monitor my heartbeat. And so she'll be know when I'm getting excited.
There are so many pranks we can pull now.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff.
There are so many opportunities to bunking you now, James. So I'm looking forward.
You're going to be trying to call me on my watch. It's bad enough.
No. We
have another device ringing.
We're going to have Sophie interrogating you as to why your heartbeat leapt in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
When we send you pictures of other redheads.
Better than that. When I have a heart attack, the phone will tell Sophie that I'm having a heart attack.
Great.
Yeah, that's really useful.
Useful.
That's you sold it for me now. Yeah.
And when I do have a heart attack, all I have to do is to press and hold that button there for 3 seconds, and it just calls the cavalry. Emergency.
So just very briefly on the Pixel phone, since we said we'd talk about it, very, very briefly. It looks like quite a nice phone. It looks like it's twice the price of the Nexus 5X.
Exactly. It costs about the same as an iPhone. So
it is definitely Google. They've seen the kind of markup that Apple can make on a vertically integrated software, hardware, and distribution stack. And they've decided that they want some of that. And so that appears to be what's happening. And they are actually, I mean, one of the interesting things is that they are, that phone gets a version of the Assistant and a couple of other things before the other phones. So they are preferentially treating their own hardware above that of, say, Samsung or LG, which is interesting. There's been rumblings that it's a slightly different version of Android as well. So they're very much starting to go down the Apple quasi-proprietary tree because they think they can make much more money at it, presumably.
Do we know anything about the demand? These things are not in stores yet, are they? Can you buy one?
Actually, David has ordered one. He ordered one the day they were announced and was told delivery in 3 weeks, but the official launch isn't until the 4th of November or something like that.
Okay, well, that's not too far away.
There's a little bit of confusion as to from where, though, because there's a lot of talk about from Verizon, but in fact, they're not unique to Verizon.
No, Carphone Warehouse in UK have been taking pre-orders. On a slightly different side, I read an article which estimated the BOM cost, the bill of materials cost, so the build cost for these things, the standard one, to be somewhere in the order of between $120 and $130. So somebody somewhere is aiming to make a lot of wonga on this.
Well, all of the Apple products are very low, shockingly low too compared. I mean, these figures don't take into account a certain number of things, but sure, there's a huge
Apple's margin on the iPhone is what, 40% or something?
It's huge.
No, about 400%.
No, it's not that high.
Well, the BOM cost that was the very early, I don't know how they're doing now, but the very early iPhones, it was the same thing. I heard that the BOM cost was like 150, 200 euros or whatever. So, and they were selling for 600, 700, the first one. I don't know.
Yeah,
the one where there would never be any apps.
Yeah, right. Well, there weren't supposed to be. But yeah, no, so I think it's an interesting move more for what it says about Google's aspirations than for the phone itself. There's a delicious moment in the demo where one of the guys, if you watch the video, one of the people in the front row has to get up and walk out because whenever the speaker said, "Okay, Google," his phone went off and started trying to do the thing that the speaker was talking about. So he actually left.
And this is actually a problem with Amazon's Alexa too. It is constantly misfiring in our house.
Yeah, I was going to say, Andy, have you got your Amazon Echo there by any chance?
Yes, it's in the other room. I could move it, I suppose, if you want to play with it.
Well, I just wanted to have a go with it, see whether we can make it do outrageous things.
So I watched a talk by somebody who was doing an interesting hack between Alexa and something else, and she tried to give a demo. But while she was describing what her demo was going to do, Alexa kept on firing off and basically doing completely random things while she was saying, well, so this is an Alexa thing that is integrated into da-da-da. And then the next thing that was Alexa was trying to integrate something into something else. And it's like, do you want to buy 100,000 dishwashers? Like, well, no, actually, that wasn't what we had in mind at all. Integrate dishwashers, whatever.
It sounds like one of your demos, Tim.
In the latest IoT podcast that Stacey Higginbotham and company have done, one of the things they've decided they have to do in order to do that podcast is come up with a term. They're going to refer to Alexa or Siri or whatever as "she who cannot be named."
Yes, exactly.
I would like to announce a piece of news before we quit and go to the mature audiences only. This should probably be in the mature audiences only, but I see that if you go to ballotboxing2016.com, there is a WebRTC app that will allow you to control Clinton and Trump boxing robots. Great use for WebRTC, I think.
Yeah, probably the best.
Great.
Ballotboxing2016.com. Let's hear some final statements, people, because
I'm hungry.
Yeah, that's a good one. You got to look at my recipe suggestions, Tim. I made that vegan thing tonight, and it looks like it's really going to be good.
Okay, well, I'll talk to you when you've eaten it.
Wire. I tasted it. It's very good. Andy, any final conclusions?
I don't know, really. I mean, to me, the whole of this, I don't know what I'm concluding. Sorry, I was away with
Alexa.
Anything.
The whole thing about taking some responsibility for your local network and your own network, I think, is important. And education on this and the sort of things that can go wrong will change people's view of what they should
absolutely.
be doing.
We're just, and that leads on to my little bit here. We're just about to reach this stage where individuals and groups of individuals can run their own network infrastructure. Up until now, the only people who've been able to do that have been the big mobile network operators. And what do you mean, and me? What? No, you can't. And don't you come up with the island state of Nui, because is it working?
Well, it is. It's working in exactly the way they wanted it to. Which is kind of funny.
In exactly the same way as your GSM worked at Burning Man.
Yes, actually, in exactly the same way.
Anyway,
because what happened is in both cases, the operators decided that they needed to get in there and deliver something. Which is what the guys in Nui wanted to happen anyway.
Turned out to be a result anyway, because what the guys in Nui actually wanted was this coverage, wasn't it?
Yes, and the fact that we did that, and the same thing happened in Burning Man. The Comnet have actually now wheel in a really big cell so that it does pretty much work, and so it is the like we functioned as the grain of sand in the oyster,
Yeah, but I really do think that this kind of citizens cellular infrastructure concept is going to be one of the things that will become quite exciting over the next couple of years. kind of.
I so hope that it does, James. I would love it to. My experience with the telcos so to date has been always that they promise you these lovely things and then somehow they're not quite that useful because there's a sudden,
But the whole point
fine
of this
for switching it on
is it's not about the telcos. It's about people like you and me. But then again, I am a telco, so that's tricky, isn't it?
I hear what you're saying, and I would dearly love that to be the case, but I'm skeptical that it will be.
Yeah, and it hadn't really kind of hit me how easy putting cellular infrastructure out is until almost by accident I ended up in Chicago addressing the TAPA, Tucson Amateur Packet Radio DCC, so amateur radios in America, operators in America. And I then realized that they're sitting on all the component parts that you need to run a mobile infrastructure, with one exception, and that's the SIM cards. But I think we can fix that. And
that'll be the throttling point, yes.
Well, it may be this week, but I think I can do something to assist in that and possibly make a little bit of money out of it at the same time.
Excellent. Well, listen, I'm hungry.
All that arguing and defending of 2G must have made you really hungry.
Defending of something that exists, yes. Take care.
We'll be determining the winner on March 31st, 2017. In the meantime, I've used up.
What do you mean March the 31st? You said 1 year, didn't we?
No. 1 quarter. You said that we're going to be ready, rolling it out in Q1. So we'll see at April 1st, April Fool's Day. I have used.
Now you're changing the parameters on me. I'm not happy with that.
We have a recording, James.
I have used up 4 gigabytes LTE data out of my 50 for the month. Of course, I don't know what day. Looks like I'm kind of in the middle of the month, so we're good.
We're worth every penny of it.
I agree, and we've gone almost 2 hours here, so I just wanted to mention that Jamie King of StealThisShow.com will be with us next week, I hope, because I don't have 100% confirmation, but he was supposed to be good. He travels a lot.
So he'll be there on his 2G GSM modem, no doubt.
Exactly. And it's going to be an interesting show if he deigns to do it, because we talk about BitTorrent. I've listened to his show, StealThisShow.com, because he talks about BitTorrent and P2P, and it's a very interesting topic, and he's very well informed. So I'm looking forward to that. Meantime, this is the VUC. You know that we're at VUC.me, and there's going to be a whole recorded announcement after this, so why do I bother?
Oh,
Thank
incidentally,
you, everybody. Yeah, go, Mike.
One last thing. We have Yonomi. They haven't committed to a date yet, but it's an IoT-ish kind of thing. They are an Android and iOS app that is sort of the logical extension of IFT.
And this is the continuation of I Know You. And you know me.
How do you spell
One thing I can tell you, yeah.
How do you spell I know? You know me.
YONOMI.io is the URL. They're a relatively young company, and they have replaced IFT around here for doing things where you want to say, Alexa, please do this. But then invoke a function that involves doing something with a bunch of conditional constructs involved.
Look, Andy's thing just lit up.
It said it can't understand you, Michael.
Alexa,
the accent.
Fire the machine guns.
Sorry.
Thank you, everybody.
What is playing?
I don't know what you said. Shouldn't it be something like, I don't believe it?
No, even better. Alexa, play Randy Rare Resnick on Amazon Music.
I couldn't find songs by Randy Rare in your music library.
That should be, I couldn't find any. Alexa.
Well, you're on Apple Music, Randy. So.
Well, I'm on. I probably have stuff on Amazon as well, actually.